Hello friends, Anxious Cynic here once again, and thank you for joining me for another Minecraft animation compilation. I feel a bit tired, just letting you know. But without further ado, let's go ahead and review the submissions we got for the time travel theme. So the first submission here, one of the big things that I have to point out is I'm not quite sure how the time travel theme comes through. Obviously he has travel, he's touched the command block, and he ends up somewhere else. But this seems really to evoke more of a matter transportation device or something, more so than traveling through time. You really need to have that element in there that says time has passed. Maybe even like having the character look older somehow. Maybe rig up a beard or something. I don't know exactly what you could do in that regard, but you got to get creative. Show something that suggests time has passed, like have the house be different or something. Like he teleports outside the house, and maybe the house is dilapidated, but you'd have to have more establishing shots, things like that, to convey that. So anyway, yeah, I understand that this is a little bit of a tricky theme, but you need to have those elements there. Technically speaking, though, in terms of the quality of the animation, it doesn't look too bad. The main thing that stuck out to me, is probably the only thing I really have to comment on here, is this spot here where the depth of field screws up. So you have this blurred, this in the focus, and it kind of like, I guess, focuses more directly here and then back out or something. And yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know if that was an accident with the keyframes, but stuff like that you want to keep a lookout for. I suppose there could be a reason to do that, but it looks more like a mistake to me. So moving on. So this one's pretty cool. It definitely has the time travel element there. The only issue I had with it, technically speaking, it all seems pretty good. Decent lighting, everything seems to work well enough for what's being presented here. The main issue I had is, again, it's the trickiness of the time travel aspect. There's nothing to distinguish past me versus present me, future me, whatever, in the animation, and the way that the camera is kind of showing things, it's not necessarily clear which is which, what the motivation is, what is happening when. So, like, obviously the character is the same character, so he looks the same, but there's nothing that tells me which one is which. Other than that, it definitely has the time travel aspect there. It's just, to me, it was confusing. Maybe it's because I'm tired right now, so, don't take my word for it. But it just came off a bit confusing. Technically speaking, again, the animation quality, everything's kind of understated and just kind of there, so good job on just sort of having the scene be what it is and not trying to overly emphasize, things you might be inclined to try to show off in that regard. So good job there, and maybe my criticism of the confusing nature of it is just on me, so don't take it to heart. But I do think there are certain things that you could do with this to make things like that a little bit more clear. Alright, so this one definitely seems to be a bit more of a beginner work. Technically speaking, there's a lot going on here that needs to be addressed. Default walk cycle, not a big deal, but the timing should at least be right. Like, you have the character essentially just walking forward and he's churning, he's jumping around. You need to try to work on your keyframes and the timing there. Make sure the character is facing the way that he's walking at any given time. It would be better for him to come up here and like stop, do a turn, walk, stop, do a turn, rather than have this kind of weird sudden slide like that. You have the camera angles. I've noticed this a lot in beginner animations, is the camera is just kind of flying all over the place. It's moving a lot. There's not a lot of cohesion. There's not a lot of, obviously cinematography and things like that are their own skills, and that comes with time. But you at least don't want the camera jumping around. It would be much better just to have a static camera angle set to like a wide shot that just shows everything, rather than trying to do all these crazy angles and have the camera fly everywhere, because it becomes too confusing for the viewer, and especially for an animation this short. It moves so fast, like there's just no way to take it all in, and you have like all these weird random movements in the camera, and with the time travel aspect, the way it takes place, you see you have that random movement there, things like that. You want to be very deliberate. You want whatever is shown to the best of your ability be exactly what you intend to show. But Really, the best advice if you're beginning is to just make a lot of animations. Just do a lot of stuff, watch other people's animations, try to mimic things that you see, try to understand what it would take technically to achieve what someone else is doing by replicating it, things like that. But just a high volume of work. Do a lot and you'll get better as you go. So this one's kind of funny. It's a very direct take on the time travel theme. Now, first of all, as we always have to point out, Flatlands, highly recommend not doing that. There's no scene here. There's nothing to give the animation any kind of pizzazz, and you don't want that to be the case. But as far as the concept and everything, I thought it was a nice little quirky concept. Default walk cycle, there's not a whole lot of animation going on here. But I will say, you know, camera work and everything, you went with a little bit less movement, more static camera angle, a lot of basic things. Unfortunately, the camera angles that you get aren't the best. Like the focus is way up here. You need to kind of have, you know, rule of thirds and kind of have your subject be the main focus in the way that your shot is done. Obviously, like right here it works, but the camera angle doesn't change as Steve walks over here, so you want to maybe have the camera move up or just change the position of it to, you know, an instant transition so it just moves to another shot where it's closer to Steve, or, you know, focus more on the subjects here. Here's the biggest flaw. At first, I did not get that he was traveling back in time and becoming a child. Then the trick to making a child in animation or whatever is the head has to be bigger. You can't just shrink the whole body down because he looks like he just got smaller. So typically what I do when I'm portraying like a young version of something, whether it's an animal or a human or whatever in Minecraft, is you reduce the size of the body and everything, of course, but you have to make the head bigger. So like I'll usually put mine at like 1.25, so it's a quarter bigger than the default size, and that will convey the child, Kid Steve, visually that you're trying to go for. So this one was a lot of fun to watch. I really appreciate the effort here, and obviously I think at this point this is the best submission we've gotten so far that illustrates the theme, has good animation quality, and all that good stuff. I really like the take on this one of him having to try and save himself, and it's just, you know, I don't know. He's so clumsy of a player that it's running him ragged, and it just doesn't seem to help. Kind of a classic comedy concept there, and I really liked it. So there was a few technical things that stuck out to me. The first thing is around 37 seconds here. Right here, you can tell that the character model is just kind of sliding in, and right there, right in here, his arm clips through the stone. That's pretty nitpicky, but due to everything else, it kind of had my expectations a bit higher to see little basic glitches like that. You know, just adding even if you don't want to animate the character walking, you can easily kind of animate a slight bob to him and just make sure that the arm doesn't clip through, things like that. And that'll sell that without having to go through a bunch of tedious animation for something you barely see. Otherwise, I thought this was pretty well done. There's a lot of little things here. I would have to watch it multiple times to try and catch it all. I did enjoy my little cameo in there. One thing, you know, this is kind of maybe a stylistic thing as well. So you can kind of choose how you want to go about doing these things in your animations if you want blocks to align perfectly as they would in Minecraft. But like right here, you can see the seam. So this, you know, maybe not to the average viewer who doesn't animate, but to someone who does this, like, you would know that this is a block you imported in order to animate. So it doesn't line up perfectly. If that's how you want it to look for, you know, some kind of personal stylistic reason, then, you know, whatever. It's only going to stand out to people who know different, probably. It's just something to keep in mind there. You can turn snapping on so that everything lines up perfectly and you don't have to finagle with it by hand. Just turn on your little grid thing and everything will snap together in, you know, sections where they all line up and you don't have to sit there and try to perfect it. things like that. But either way, I thought this was really creative and a lot of fun to watch, and I really enjoyed this take on the theme. So our final submission by Fantastic Animation, the one who chose this theme, I also really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a good clear-cut take on the animation theme for this competition, and I like the elements of it. You know, you didn't really skimp on the ideas and the detail here of there being this device and someone's breaking in to steal it. So like in terms of like story and plot and everything, this is a very kind of, you know, 3-act format, pretty well executed animation wise. The quality and everything was suitable for, you know, what was presented. The lighting quality, I would feel it's a bit dark in this scene here, which is understandable. I get, you know, what you're trying to do, so it's not really that, you know, much of a negative, but you do have like these lights up here and things like that, so it kind of looks a bit too default to me. You know, having the lighting in this scene, it can be dark, but just having it be a little bit more stylistic, I think would have helped this to kind of create more of a mood. It would have helped make it a bit more dramatic and kind of sell that mysterious kind of tension of a heist. I like this here, you know, the kind of the security camera shot. The security camera is in a bit of a weird position, just kind of propped up there on a bookshelf. But either way, one thing I would have done with this, just as a personal note, is probably make the camera grayscale, like black and white. Obviously not all security cameras are black and white, but it would kind of help sell that effect. It's like a black and white security camera footage. What I would have probably done as well is had the camera positioned higher. Obviously physically it's here, but like if you kind of put it like it was mounted in the corner there, and then have it a little bit higher angle so it's closer to the ceiling, angled down a little bit. Maybe even adjust the distortion, maybe give it like a bit of a bubble effect to some extent. Things like that would help improve that. Just it's a very quick shot. You know, not trying to nitpick on something that small, but just little things like that can improve something so simple and make it stand out as a little bit more polished. I like the idea. He goes back in time to like ancient Egypt and steals their gold, and then the guy comes and he's like, what? So good job on that, and I like the little comedic sword drop at the end here. So yeah, good job on that. With all that said, I think the winner for me is clear, and I'm gonna have to go ahead and give this theme to Brick-a-Bang. I really enjoyed this animation, kind of went above and beyond the Call of Duty with the concept here. It was interesting to see everything that you crammed into this little animation for this theme, and I really enjoyed it. I thought besides some of the little nitpick flaws that I pointed out, this one really stood out to me as kind of nailing all those aspects coming together for the theme and for the quality of the animation and just kind of making something this enjoyable to watch. So yeah, good job on that, and Brick-a-Bang is going to get to pick the next theme. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you in the next compilation.